I'd now like to invite to the podium two very special guests for whom Alexa was a treasured part of their lives and who reciprocally held a very special place in Alexa's life. Her granddaughter, Abbie Jean McDonough, and Megan Leslie, CEO of World Wildlife Fund Canada and former Member of Parliament, and MSVU Honorary Doctorate.
Good morning. My name is Abbie Jean McDonough, and I'm the eldest granddaughter of Alexa McDonough. It is such an honor to be here with you today and to speak about my grandmother. It is an honor, but I'm also very nervous because speaking at a convocation ceremony is quite far out of my comfort zone. But when Dr. Lumpkin approached me with this opportunity, I agreed almost immediately because I thought of my grandmother and the courage and fearlessness that she has demonstrated to all of us throughout her entire life. When she was NDP leader, she not only had to do political debates on live TV as the only woman on the stage, but she also had to do them in French, when she'd be the first to admit her French was not perfect. So I thought to myself, if she could debate politics on live TV in front of the entire country in 2 languages, then I can most definitely do this. By her words and example, she taught me that outside of your comfort zone is where you find yourself growing as a person. So here I am today, and I hope that she's proud of me for it.
And my name is Megan Leslie, and I was lucky enough to be elected to represent the riding of Halifax after Alexa McDonough, and she was both a role model and a mentor to me. I'm also really nervous about speaking here today because, you heard that introduction from Dr. Taylor. You heard the word trailblazer, 3 times already? She was a trailblazer. She was an incredible leader. She was an icon. How could I possibly stand here and pretend to do that legacy justice? If I could ask her advice about today, I know she'd laugh at me and say, come on, Megan, no one wants to hear about me. I'm the past. What we need to be talking about is these graduates and the future. But I think that all of us want to hear about the past so that we can take lessons and chart a course for the future. So let us tell you about the past, not about how Alexa McDonough was the first this or the only that, or the trails that she blazed and the bars she set. Let us tell you about the person that we knew, a person who would gently push you outside of your comfort zone, who didn't care that much about accolades and who was always thinking about what's next, who is next, what possibilities could the future hold. The last time I saw Abbie Jean speak publicly, it was at a community dinner. I don't remember what the event was, but she was going to deliver the Wordsworth Grace. I don't know if you know it. It's the one that goes, what we desire for ourselves, we desire for all. And I was really impressed because you'd memorized it and you were about 8 years old and much shorter than you are right now. And you got up there and you began the grace and in front of all of those people in the community center. And towards the end, you stumbled a little bit and you lost your place. And Alexa was in the audience and she very quietly prompted. And in that 8-year-old way, you nodded and you continued without hesitation. And when I think of Alexa, I think of moments like this. Of course, she is known for being in the limelight. She was on stage in those debates. She was in the House of Commons giving speeches, doing media interviews. But to know her is to know how many people she supported, how many people she prompted and coached and mentored and championed. Not just her granddaughter on that stage, but people she met in the community. She saw that spark, that fire, that leadership in you, and she wanted to support you to find your own voice in the struggle for justice in our community.
She was like this with family as well as with people within the community. Along with my siblings and cousins, she shared her wisdom in quiet, thoughtful ways when the moment was right. But the most important lesson that she taught me was that there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. You can have sympathy for someone and feel bad for them, but to have empathy is to feel what they're feeling and to put yourself in their shoes. Being empathetic is so powerful and is such an important part of belonging to humanity. It drives us to be concerned about the condition of those around us and to share in lived experiences to make the world a better place in whatever way you can. Through empathy, my grandmother was able to recognize her privilege and uplift and amplify the voices of people belonging to communities that were historically not given a seat at the table.
In a tribute to Alexa, I was asked what I hope she would be remembered for, and I wasn't really able to capture it or express it, and I think Abbie Jean actually does capture it when she used that word empathy. What I said was that I hope she'd be remembered for the things that she wouldn't be remembered for, which I know that doesn't make any sense. But all those incredible accomplishments you heard about, those accomplishments earned Alexa McDonough a place in the history books. But it is her empathy, how she used her privilege. That was what was so special, so righteous, and so transformational. Dr. Taylor mentioned that Alexa organized her youth group to fight the conditions in Africville. She was an ally in the struggle for rights for the people of Africville since she was a teenager. But she wasn't African Nova Scotian. She didn't come from Africville. I mean, she was a white girl from the south end of Halifax. She was also a fierce defender of LGBTQ+ rights. She marched in the first Pride Parade in Halifax. She worked with leaders from the queer community to strategize on different issues, and she raised the issue of queer rights whenever she could. It was her empathy and her sense of justice that led her to join in these struggles. When you think of Africville or the struggle for LGBTQ+ rights in Nova Scotia, you should think about the people from those communities who fought for those rights. But know that Alexa was there. Sometimes she was in the back, supporting and cheering. Sometimes she was at their side in solidarity. And sometimes she was at the front until the right moment when she would reach back and pull someone up to take her place. She was keenly aware of her privilege and the importance of using it to support and amplify the struggles of others and to demand justice.
The Alexa McDonough that you saw in public life was the same person in her private life. She was an incredibly dedicated mother, grandmother, and friend. As a mother, she was always there to help her mischievous sons whenever they got into trouble as rebellious teenagers. She helped and supported them, but she also gave them the space to make their own mistakes and help them without judgment. This allowed them to flourish and grow into successful business people, caring members of society, community builders, and the most amazing fathers that anyone could ask for. My nanny loved spending time with her 7 grandchildren. We loved sleepovers at Nanny's, walking in the public gardens with her, and going to the ballet. She was always there supporting us at our infinite numbers of sporting events. Whether it was basketball, soccer, hockey, football, or dance, we could always spot her in the bleachers. She even took the time to take me to a few of my ballroom dance competitions in Montreal and Toronto. These trips contain some of my favorite, most cherished memories with her, and as a former ballerina with an enormous love for dance, I think she enjoyed them as well.
This was the same spirit that Alexa brought to our relationship. I was elected in 2008 and I found it overwhelming. And added to this was the enormity of following in the footsteps of Alexa McDonough. It was a lot of pressure. But anytime Alexa and I were together and someone would say something like that, which was often, she would jump in really quickly with, well, luckily my shoes are only a size 6, Megan's gonna fill them out and more, just watch her. She was my #1 champion. And often at events, like local debates, I could spot her in the bleachers. She didn't hover, she didn't tell me how to do things. Sometimes I wish she had, but she was firm that I had to be my own MP in the way that I thought best, in a way that was true to me. She was always there for advice and insight. and she was always there for some good old-fashioned gossip. But her way of supporting me was to step back, to let me be who I was as a leader, and I am very grateful for that.
My grandmother had many people whom she could call her friends, some of whom would be better categorized as family to her. I have witnessed the enormous support that they have shown her throughout the years in many ways, big and small. When receiving thanks from our family for their support, they always reply that they are just giving back to her what she has given to them. Kindness is like a boomerang. What you give, you get back.
To close, Abbie, Jean, and I want to share 2 stories for us that really capture who Alexa was, and both stories show the power of words. For me, it was an Alexa McDonough who was a politician who I had never met, who I was proud to see up there on the national stage debating those men, but who's someone I hadn't really thought about too much, if I'm being honest. It was September 2001, and I had just started law school here in Halifax. 2 planes had flown into the Twin Towers in New York, and another plane hit the Pentagon. And people were saying this name, Osama bin Laden. And they were talking about Islamic terrorism and jihad, and I had never heard any of these words before or any of these names. And I was scared. And in the chaos of the aftermath, Alexa McDonough, the MP for Halifax, she stood up in the House of Commons and she said, "We need Canadians to know that Osama is a Canadian name, that Mohammed is a Canadian name, and that worshiping in a mosque is a Canadian tradition." Many, many Muslim Canadians, people of color, people with Muslim-sounding names or quote-unquote different-sounding names have talked about the impact of that moment, of hearing Alexa so publicly stand in solidarity with them on a national stage, and how powerful that was. For me, I was this young, white, working-class woman from Northern Ontario in a mining community. I mean, I had never met an Osama or a Mohammed. I didn't even know what a mosque was. And when I heard Alexa give that speech and say those words, it brought me back to my values. It reminded me of why I became an activist and of the justice that I so very much wanted for my community. And it literally snapped me out of that fear. And it led me to doing what I could in my community to combat hate and Islamophobia and racism. Now remember, those words weren't a law that Alexa got passed or a highway that she got built. Those words were about justice. And she did more for our country than she ever could have known when she uttered them.
My story is also about the power of words, but more so about the power of words that brought comfort to my grandmother. As many of you know, my grandmother suffered from Alzheimer's disease. One of the last times I was able to visit with her, I was helping her with a daily task, and she was very frustrated that she could not complete it independently. She was having trouble expressing her words, and I could see how upset she was. In her frustration, she pointed to a poster on her wall that contained the words of Jack Layton in his final message. It read that love is better than anger, hope is better than fear, optimism is better than despair. So let us be loving, hopeful, and optimistic, and we'll change the world. I read it out loud to her, and she immediately calmed. This was a message that she strongly believed in, and it brought her comfort. Graduates, we are not just celebrating Alexa McDonough, but hoping that you see her as an example in her humanity.
The stories we're sharing with you are lessons from the past, from Alexa, as you go on to your next chapter.
To be loving, hopeful, and optimistic.
To be in solidarity with your neighbors.
To use your voice and privilege.
And to reach back and pull others up to join you and maybe even surpass you.
Congratulations on your incredible accomplishments today, graduates. We are both very excited to see what you do next.